Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating where we dig into the whys of people's behavior, especially when it comes to their love lives. Why do people do the things that they do? Julie, do you have all the answers? I
No, I
certainly
don't. I
don't.
wish I did.
I
I mean,
certainly
I have
don't.
all of the answers, is what I meant to say.
But it's I think it's funny when I hang out with my single friends just because I'm not single, they feel like I should have all the answers. Also because we have a dating podcast. So a lot of the times they're like, "Come on, you know what's happening. Like tell me the truth." And I'm like, "No, I'm not a psychic. I cannot tell you what's going on in
Well,
people's lives."
that reminds me of Liza Schlesinger's comedy. She's like, there's the secret road on the side.
I
And she's
know.
like, if I knew the secret, I wouldn't have waited to 35 to get married, you know?
The fact is, nobody has answers. Even the people who are dating experts, even the people who are really good at dating, they don't have the answers because everyone's
No.
so different. You cannot read people's minds. But at least on this show, we try to get down to the bottom of why people do the things they do.
All you can do is control your own mindset and be aware of the different ways that people think about things and have conversations. I think that's really ultimately it. Like when people always write in, it's not just our podcast. I've heard this on other podcasts. When you write in like the long-winded question, it's like, have you talked to your partner first? Or
Yeah.
have you talked to that person in question? That's usually going to solve like 80%.
And I also want to bring up, I just want to call out some of our YouTube commenters because I knew this would happen. So what happened, we migrated our Dateable YouTube account to my old Ask Miss Single-Fied account, which was dating advice for men. I had a lot of young men watching my channel. And I knew we would get comments that would be women hating or guys who were very down about dating. And I want to call out some of these comments. I'm not going to, like, we're not going to answer all of them one by one, but if you really want to enjoy your love life and your dating life, you cannot blame other people. Those comments are counterproductive, saying, "Oh, why women suck, like what is women's value to this world?" Like, why do you even need to comment? If those are the negative thoughts you have in your head, I'd rather have you not be a subscriber. I'd rather have you not comment and comment where else, someone else's channel who may actually want to have a conversation with you. I just think in dating we have to stop blaming other people. We can only control our own actions, and we're all guilty of doing something not great in dating. So let's spend that time correcting our own behavior.
So what was it that one of your friends asked you, expecting you to have like the crystal ball?
Oh my gosh, just he my partner says this to me. Someone I've been dating says this to me, and it doesn't make me feel good. Do you think he's saying it to me because he really means it, or do you think he's saying it to me because he wants attention? I don't know.
You're like, I've never met the guy in my life.
I'm not dating your partner. Like, how would I know? Like, go ask him. You're the one who sees him all the time. Like, I don't know. Do you want me to text him? I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. It's just I get it. I think also I would say this about women is a lot of times we ask for advice when we just want to vent. And,
Yeah, for sure.
I think she just wanted to vent, but it's packaged in a way of asking for advice. So this is my advice to all the women out there. If you want to vent, just say you want to vent. And as a girlfriend to all the women out there who want to vent, it is also my responsibility to always ask, okay, before I give you my opinion, are you looking for advice or are you looking to vent? You're right? Like,
Or
for that.
it's not even, it's to vent, but also validation. I think
Yeah.
that's another reason. I mean, I've done it before. I'm not going to play innocent here. Sometimes you just want your friend or someone to like, take your side on it. But then at the end of the day, it comes down to what we always say on this podcast. It's not a game of me versus you. It's about you and your partner. And I think like, at the root of this podcast, like it is all about dating stories and, trials and tribulations with dating and relationships. But at the end of the day, it does come down to communication. And that's something that it's not an episode we do because it's literally on every single episode we have. And I think ultimately that's the tool that is like, it's the tools like communication or having your own self-worth or like all of that. That's really what makes or breaks your love life. It's not, oh, can I market myself well on this dating app? However, that does help to get initially in the door. And we have an episode today all about that. So I think a lot of people need like those kind of initial hooks, but it's the internal and the external that is so essential when it comes to dating.
It's just self-reflection. And I think we just have to communicate also, like setting up the scenario a little bit better for our friends before we go into these long-winded explanations about, you know, why you're facing this dating conundrum. It's like, okay, I think sometimes people just want to hear what they want to hear. And so the conversations like are just, they don't go anywhere because they just want to hear you tell them exactly what they want to hear.
But I think sometimes people just want to be heard and they just want like, you know, someone to be like, yep, I see what you're saying. I hear you, especially if their partner might not be. So I do get the flip side of like using it as to vent to your friends and, you know, people talk in our Facebook group. I actually think talking to people that are a little more removed is actually better, because the problem when you vent to your friends is you usually don't share all the good things, because then it comes off as like bragging and it's weird. Mm-hmm. So then your friends only hear the negative, and then if you do pursue this relationship, they have a really weird vision. I know that's happened to me with friends. It's like people will vent and vent, and you meet their partner, or you have met their partner and you know their partner, and you're just like, oh, is this a healthy relationship? Because you only hear one side of it. So I think that is something that I've learned over the years of like, there's a thin line of like sharing stuff with your friends and bonding, and then also necessarily like disclosing every last dirty detail about your relationship, opposed to like just working it through with the person in the relationship.
And maybe this is a generalization, but I definitely feel this with my girlfriends. Now with my guy friends, it's a totally different story. So this week we've been in LA, we've been hanging out with my boyfriend's guy friends. And at the beginning of dinner, it's very sober. Everyone's in their 30s, mid to late 30s. Everyone seems to have their shit together. We have these very mature conversations. Some of the guys are in relationships. You know, it's like very nice to have these conversations with a bunch of dudes. And then we head out to an outdoor bar later. And as more drinks are coming around, the conversations revert back to their 13-year-old selves. And I think a lot of guys are guilty of this when they get into this group situation. Our dinner conversation was all about future thinking, how to change the world, like what our purpose is in life. And all of a sudden we're at the bar and one of the guys is like, yeah, I smashed that, like under his breath. And I don't even know who he's talking about. He's literally just like directing these words at some random girl across the bar. Oh, and he's like, yeah, I smashed that. Like, excuse me, what grade are we in now? Why are you reverting back?
It's so interesting because I feel like, I mean, not to generalize, but what we were just saying is like women don't want to brag about their partner in relationship, and then men are like the opposite. Like they don't vent, but they will be like, I did this, I did this.
Yeah. It becomes a checklist of all the things that they've been so good at. But this is also like kind of a great way to frame our Would You Rather this week. So Would You Rather was, in your love life, would you rather be known as the romantic or the realist? And I think it's like how you interpret this question, but I purposely wrote this question as how do you want to be perceived, not what you really are.
Interesting.
So now that I can clarify the question, Julie, what would be your answer to this?
Ooh, this is tough because I definitely am the romantic for sure. You know that. I feel like I was actually just with our friend Louise that helps us with some of the podcast stuff too. I was just talking to her in a park about this, and I feel like I'm always the one that's like, why can't like we move mountains to make this work? Like I'm not the realist at all. Like I'm always with people that are much more realistic. And then like, if you actually look at like what they're saying, it's totally valid. And I'm probably like living in a fantasy, but I don't think I would trade that, because I do think at the end of the day, maybe this is my romantic side coming out, but I do believe if two people really will do what it takes to make it work, you can make it work.
Mhm.
Like, there are always going to be barriers, and I get that some barriers are bigger than others. I'm not trying to like undermine that there are certain things that are harder to overcome than others,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of it comes down again to your mindset. Like, is this a priority? Is this something that you can have like a growth mindset on, or do you feel like it's going to like hinder it? And I guess like, yeah, I mean, maybe I get hurt more because I'm the romantic, but I think I wouldn't trade it. What about you?
I'm happy that you are sticking to your romantic side because I do think like in order to be in a really healthy relationship, you need to have a nice balance of both. But in today's world, with how we approach dating, too many people are a little too much of a realist.
Mm,
And when two people are too realistic about things that could happen, then the relationship will never push forward. Because let's be honest, if you're
yeah,
being realistic, you're like, actually, there's a 50% chance of us working out, right?
right,
You need
right.
the romantic in the relationship to give it hope and to give it this push to move forward. So I'm glad you're sticking to your guns. Personally, for me, I think I'm too much of a realist. Sometimes all of my boyfriends have said I'm too direct and it
Mm-hmm.
hurts their feelings. And I tend to date sensitive men. And one good example is my boyfriend's been working out, he's gaining a little bit muscle, and he just wants a little bit of acknowledgement. And it's so hard for me to say, babe, you look good, you're gaining muscle. Instead, I'm like, oh, you definitely don't have the genes to be super buff, but
Poor guy.
you're doing the best you can. And that is the Asian tiger mom in me that will always give you that B minus. Like you're
Oh
never
my
gonna
God.
B minus, right? In my eyes. Even though in my mind, I want to, that's such a compliment.
So when Yue gives you a compliment, you know that like you really deserve that compliment.
Yeah, or I'm really drunk because I do not give compliments at all. But I need to be more of a romantic because I realize we all need that. We need that
Yeah.
physical side. We need to believe in something. Otherwise, then like, why are we getting into relationships? Otherwise, you're like, actually, the all the statistics are proving that I should be alone versus being in a
True. The
relationship.
only downside, though, and I'm like literally just regurgitating a conversation I just had, so this is just ironic, but I think this comes up a lot, is like, I feel like it sets you up, though, for failure sometimes when you're
Mm,
romantic, because like, I definitely have this like love conquers all mentality, and it's just not realistic sometimes. Like, for example, when my boyfriend got deported, or I always say got deported, it's much more dramatic. He basically just lost his visa. But we'll go with the
No,
deported
I like
story.
deported. That's more of a
Yeah,
storyline. We can
exactly.
get
I
a
feel
movie deal that
this is
way.
the romanticized version of myself. He was thrown out of this country, but no. But I think like in that situation, he was very realistic. Like he's like the odds of me getting a visa, the odds of this working when we're like in different time zones. But I was like, we can make it work, you know. Like, and I
Mhm.
think that it's a positive and a negative at the same time.
But I think you can be a romantic in the how you're being perceived, but realistic in your approach.
Mm,
So I think I would want my partner to consider me romantic, but in order to save my own heart, I can still have a very realistic approach, right?
So that might be the part that I want to change if we're going to
Mm.
talk about change. Because I think I also tend, one of my patterns that I need to break is that you and I are very different this way. Like, I feel like when you're done with someone, you're
Oh,
done.
done. They're
And
dead.
I linger forever. Like, I don't
Yes.
ever break up with anyone. I mean, like, I do, but like, they're
Yes.
always still in my life to some capacity. And I actually, fun fact, had someone new reappear this week. So, but yeah.
Oh, hey, oh, don't leave us hanging. Who?
Yeah, this was the weird situation of this guy that I met on Hinge that I never actually met in real life, but we continued to
Uh,
talk from London, but we have been back chatting. So
and did he reach out?
Yes. It was like, COVID related, it's all like, how are things going over there? Like the usual line, and now it's progressed, and it might have got a little steamy this week. So I won't say anything more, but
How can you not say anything more? You basically said he reached back out to talk about COVID and then it got steamy. I don't know how you can talk about COVID and then
well,
get steamy from there. I'm
wasn't
sorry.
steamy.
How's COVID going on over there? How many deaths have you had? What are you wearing? Like, how does that conversation go
That was
down?
exactly the convo. No,
What the fuck?
no, it just
Just a
in
mask. That's all I'm
transition,
wearing.
you just need the COVID entry point, and then you can turn the virtual sex on. This wasn't this wasn't video. It was more just sexting type combos. But it's not a viable prospect for me. The romantic version of myself understands that someone I've never actually met that lives across the world is probably not the right fit. But that being said, what else am I doing right now in COVID? You got to take it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's also a very realistic way of looking at the situation.
So maybe I have maybe I have turned a bridge, but I think, yeah, exactly. Like maybe I am a little more realistic than I think. I think there's a point that I was too. Okay, this has gone a little outside of what we were saying. I guess what I was originally saying is I tend to keep people around, like past exes of mine, like my last ex. We broke up, got back together like multiple times. And there's a point where that's not healthy, but I think the romantic side of me thinks that there's like a story that's going to play out a certain way. It's like a fairy tale that
for sure
love conquers all, that it will end in the way that it's supposed to be with us together, but that's just not always realistic. So it gets in your way of meeting new people, is what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way.
Well, it's your way of putting in a narrative when a narrative has not started yet.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
creating a narrative that may not actually be the narrative you should be following in life, basically.
Right, because you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah,
Right.
so I don't know. I think you could argue pros and cons of both the realist and the romantic. I think it's probably striking the balance. Like maybe I'm turning a point, like you just said, is I still have the romantic side, but I also can be like, okay, take it for what it is. It's a fun thing to do during COVID.
Yeah.
That's it.
I always think about our conversation with Ryan Van Duzer, his journey to find love. I forget which season. It was such a great conversation.
Season 9.
Okay.
No, 10. 10.
Oh,
Season 10.
I was going to say 8. Okay. Listen to Julie. She knows.
So many good ones. Yes.
It's he talks about just his I don't know, quote unquote failures when it comes to his search for love, but in his eyes, he's just fueling his romantic side. And he's like, I'm a romantic at heart and I will be a romantic through and through, even though I've had so many heartbreaks. And I think about that quite a bit because I believe romance is a religion and you subscribe to it and you believe in it and you stick with it. And even though some things are unexplainable and it could break your heart, but if you truly believe in it, that's a goal in itself. And I think you can fulfill that even without a partner.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's how do you want to tell your life story? Like if we're truly not defining relationship success in longevity, maybe it is okay to have like a romantic spin that you've learned and loved and lost and all this versus like, I'm just a failure at relationships. Like that's not going to really help you either. So
So this is very much in line with the results of the survey of Would You Rather. 51% said that they're romantic. 49% said that they're realist, which really is just 50-50%. I think people identify with both and there was no clear winner. But I also saw a lot of people were flip-flopping back and forth on our Facebook page because they're like, well, I am this, but I want to be perceived as this. And I think that's the takeaway here is what are you currently today, but where are you trying to get to? That's it.
Or the takeaway is how do you add balance in? I think that's really what it is because neither one is right or wrong. If you're totally like in the sky all the time, you're removed from reality, which is not great either.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Well, then you and I are complete opposites with this journey. I'm too
pro-
realistic. I'm
this
trying
is
to get
why it
more
works out.
romantic. You're too romantic. You're trying to get more realistic. And this goes into our conversation today with Kimmy, because Kimmy is all about, oh, she's an image consultant, but she's always also about like how you feel about yourself. You can also show that externally.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with this too, because I'm so much of a realist that when I go on dates, I dress literally in athleisure wear. Because to me, I'm like, oh, if we're walking around, I want to be comfortable. I want to make sure I don't wear a romper or a onesie, because how do I pee? You know, I think about like the very practical things. But
Interesting.
but if I let the romantic side come out, then I should put in more effort, because it also shows my date that I'm putting in the effort. And also I would also value that date more if I put in more effort. So that's
You
what I need to work on.
I never thought about this way, but pre-COVID, I'm not going to talk about dating in COVID because let's be honest, no one's wearing dresses right now on
No.
dates. But pre-COVID, I always wore dresses to dates, every single date.
Yes, I remember you saying
And
that.
it was a way for me to mentally like take this and make it a special occasion.
Yeah,
And maybe that is a romantic side of me, that it is a special
absolutely.
occasion. And yeah, like there's something a little like girly fairy tale of like wearing a dress, you know?
But also you're showing to your date that this is not platonic. You're
Yep.
not going to the gym together. You're not like hiking together, which is normally how I am dressed. But I would also say, you just said nobody's wearing dresses during COVID. Girl, I'm in LA. These girls, I was out for breakfast at 9 a.m. This girl was in like Valentino heels and like this little dress at
Okay, well,
a sidewalk cafe. I'm like,
LA's
girl,
different, but I also think it's because of no one's walking in LA. That's the
that's true.
difference.
Yeah,
In
that's
San
true.
Francisco and other cities, like you're walking like 2 miles to get to a date
So
sometimes.
true. Yeah.
Although now people, I mean, I've definitely been using Uber a lot more recently, and I
Mm,
think a lot of people are just because we're getting more comfortable. And also, like, COVID, apparently, like, all the stuff about like it being on surfaces really isn't how it's spreading anymore, is what
right.
we've learned. So I think people's comfort with Uber has definitely gone up. And I mean, I can tell from the prices it's gone up, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
gauging it. So I feel like maybe now people will dress up a little on dates again. And also like now you can go to a restaurant. When we first did socially distanced dates, if you were going on like a hike or a park, you're not going to sit. I would never sit in a park with like a dress on,
It would just
you
never
know?
happen. But I've seen people do it and it looks very Instagram worthy. It looks awesome. So maybe,
That's
I don't
true.
know. Maybe we
Well,
just try it.
I mean, that's what we learned from this episode. I'm so excited about this episode. Our guest Kimmy, who is amazing. Actually, she did a makeover with me, so
Virtual makeover.
I
Yep.
saw firsthand this entire process. So I'll give a little more insider to that. We actually have a little video clip too that we're putting on
Hmm.
social, so you can see the whole thing go down. But I think the part was that I thought like, oh, like when you hear about like looks in dating is a loaded subject. No one's going to deny that looks matter, but I think it's like people can get easily offended, right? Because if you don't fit whatever stereotype people think are like the attractive molds, it's
Hmm.
really difficult. But what Kimmy never talks about that. It's all about like, how do you look the best for you? And like,
Yes.
how do you put your best foot forward? And I think that part was amazing. And then like on my virtual makeover, like she literally was just like, you have broad shoulders. You should just be wearing V-necks. You have big boobs, broad
Mm.
shoulders,
What she call your
extension,
boobs?
the twins.
Yes.
She called them the twins, which made me chuckle. But she was basically like, just own the V-neck, show off the boobs a
Mm.
little more. It also brings your shoulders in, so you have more of that like hourglass. So she was not really telling me to do any major changes. They were just tiny tweaks and like different colors. And like you've even said this before, like certain
Hmm.
pink tones that make you look more fertile, or like red that, like like there's certain psychology of colors that attracts men and women. And she gave
Hmm.
tips for men too. This was not solely for women.
Exactly.
So I think this episode is just like action packed with a lot of like really small tidbits that you can like apply tomorrow, which is amazing. Because let's be
Yep.
honest, the inner work takes some time. So like, gotta maximize something.
At the end of the day, it's all marketing. You could have a
Yes.
really great cereal that you spent years perfecting, and it's like vegan, non-GMO, like gluten-free, whatever. It's like everything that everybody wants right now. But if you don't package it right,
Right.
nobody's going to take it off the shelf because they don't know anything about what's inside. So
Exactly.
I think she makes a really good point that we dress the way that we to our fullest potential. I guess that's what it is. And if you think about superheroes, as soon as they put on their superhero costume, they act, they talk, and they look like
Mhm.
superheroes. And that's what all of us are capable of doing. I know I have this one pair of pants, high-waisted, wide-leg pants, that whenever I wear them, my friends will be like, "Did you get taller?" Like,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I
I think I know the pants. Yeah.
do you know the pants?
I
Because
think so.
it's like, Julie, I didn't get
Yeah.
taller. It's just that I have so much confidence
Confidence.
that my
Exactly.
posture is better.
Exactly. And like I know personally when I've had all like my serious relationships, I've attracted people when I felt the best about myself.
Yes.
And even right now, like I just got a haircut 2 weeks ago. I
Yes.
feel so much better than I did 2 weeks ago. Like I feel so much more confident to do video dates, which I have another one
Mm-hmm.
coming up tonight. So
Woo!
keep you guys posted if there's
Get
anything
that get that
anything.
V-neck on.
Oh, also ironically though, you know how we talked about, you asked if that date that I've gotten so much outreach on this one, the date that did not like the podcast, if I heard from
Yes.
him, and I was like, no, I think it faded. His ears must have been ringing because he literally texted me like an hour after we recorded.
No. And what did he say?
He was just like, how was your week or something generic.
Oh, fuck
And then
him.
and I do want to point out, we actually had someone in our Facebook group make a really good comment on it. And she was like, listening to it, he missed a huge opportunity. Like, even if he doesn't like the content, he could have it complimented you on your conversational skills, your like top speaking ability, as I butcher the word speaking, but but she was like saying how like if she dated a sports anchor, a sports host, she doesn't like sports, but there's so many like good things she could like find to compliment him. So I think I just wanted to like reiterate that, not just to make myself feel better, but also just in general for like other people, because I think that's such a good point. It's like, even if you're not down with what someone's doing, there's always something that you can find in it to relate to them in a positive way and show your support. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about connecting. You're never going to connect with someone on all of their interests, but you can
no,
connect with them on a personal level that goes beyond just like the superficial interests and everything. So,
yeah.
yes, you make
But
a really good point.
her posting that reminded me that I left him on red and forgot to respond to his
Oh,
message.
oh,
So I
damn.
did, I just like, I've been going back and forth with it. I just threw the, hey, like I've been thinking about this longer and I don't think it's the right fit. Like, just even though he didn't ask to hang out, I was just like, I don't need to like keep dragging this on, kind of. And then
Yeah.
he just replied, okay. That was it.
I was going to say, why don't you text him the link to this episode? No words wasted. Just, here's how I really feel. Thank you very
I
much.
do want to call out before we do quick announcements. We actually had someone on Instagram give us very important information. Thank you,
Oh, yes.
Natalie, who reached out in relation to last week's episode. So, for anyone that missed last week's episode, it was an amazing episode. We touched on
So
like
good.
really important topics with interracial dating and racism in 2020 and all that's going on in the US and how that affects relationships. But before we got into that in the intro, we kind of did a piggyback on the week before, which is also a good plug for that episode, but about our guest that is choosing to remain a virgin and how Yue saw the Virginity Rocks t-shirt, a teen in it on a hike. And Natalie wrote us that this actually is apparently a big trend started by a YouTuber, that
Ooh.
like all these teens are wearing this line of Virginity Rocks um, t-shirts that this YouTuber, I'm trying to pull up his name, Danny Duncan, a 27-year-old YouTube personality and prankster. So apparently he wore it as a joke in his YouTube videos, but they've taken off as a line of merch. So the power of merch.
I'm reading this. I'm reading this New York Times interview with him right now, and he says I have sex, obviously, but I want people to do whatever they want to do and not be pressured into anything. He also sells practice
Amen.
safe sex shirts as well.
Amen.
I knew this would be some sort of like viral, some millennial or a Gen Z, whatever influencer thing, because think about it. All we ever learned in elementary school and middle school was practice safe sex, practice safe sex. We thought it was so stupid because adults were telling us that. We're like, no, I'm not going to practice safe sex. But now, because some YouTuber wears it on his show, it's like all of a sudden cool, you know?
Elementary school should hire YouTubers for like the DARE program.
Why don't they? You know, they should have these YouTubers saying like, the only drug I take is aspirin or whatever, like make it cool to be virgins and to be sober. I think that's the only way to get to younger people, because I will not listen to adults. When we went to sex ed classes,
Safe
like
sex ed.
safe sex classes, sex ed classes. I mean, don't you remember all we did after the classes were look up, I don't even know how we looked up because there's no internet. We would research what sex was and look at pictures. Like that's all it just made us more curious about sex.
I just think of Mean Girls, of like the gym teacher being like, you will die if you don't have sex. It's like, use a condom or die.
Yeah, fear tactics will definitely not work in that. So I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. So that means if we have any younger dateable listeners who want to rock some dateable shirts, we'd be happy to send them to you, because obviously we'd be so cool. Any 27-year-old YouTubers want to wear a shirt that says stay dateable, please let us know. We'll send you some swag.
Sounds like a plan.
We got it down. Now let's get to announcements. Where are we starting with? Instagram?
Instagram. Follow us on Instagram.
Always on the gram. We post, we do stories, we do silly things. We also do deep things. And you also get like behind the scenes look at some of our guests, which is always fun. So at Dateable Podcast, Instagram.
Yeah. And you can tell us stuff like Natalie did with Virginity Rocks. You know, it's like a two-way street here. But also the Facebook group is where it's really at. Like the Facebook group is, you know, I think it's a very positive part of the internet. We talked about earlier, you know, like the he said, she said, like the getting upset with the opposite sex and having negativity. Like we don't see any of that in the Facebook group. And honestly, like that has been the most pleasant surprise of all, just like the diversity and just like age and gender and race and pretty much any way you can be diverse. It's been an amazing group. So definitely get in there if you're not already.
And get in there now, because we're about to announce something big.
Yeah.
That we can't reveal right now. And I'm having a hard time containing myself. But we've been, Julie, myself, and our friend Louise, we've been working on this for a while. I would say months. And we finally come upon something that I think all of you will really love. So get in our Facebook group before we make that announcement, because you'll want to be there for it.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to release this into the world. I think it's just going to be such great value for everyone. I'm so excited about it.
And another thing we want to release into the world is reviews. Hi.
Yes, please. Help us get more.
Yes. If you have a moment, take a moment, go into Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. You hear all of the other podcasters do it. It's just general, I don't know, it's like industry standard. We need good reviews in order to have more listeners, in order to get more sponsors, in order to get more guests. It's just like the gift that keeps on giving by giving us a 5-star review. It takes 2 seconds. If you can leave a nice little comment, even better. If you can tell us how you found us in your comment, that's awesome, because we love hearing like the root of how you found us. So thank you for all of you. To all of you who've given us reviews already, but if you haven't yet, please, it would mean so much to us if you could leave us a review.
Yeah, we have a little over 300 now, but we know that we have a shit ton more listeners than that. So please, that is our plug to leave us that rating and review.
Fabulous. Now we're ready. Yes?
Yeah, let's hear it from Kimmy.